Hello?
Rachel,
Yeah?
how you doing?
Okay.
Just
Have
giving
you
you a
broken
call.
down?
What?
You've broken down?
What did you say?
Have you broken down?
No, not yet. It's still working.
Check your oil.
I don't know. Check the oil.
That car will not make it back.
Well, I always wanted an Austin Allegro.
And you finally saw one, didn't you?
Yeah, on eBay.
So you contact the guy.
Yeah, he said that he didn't want any time wasters and that it was a £300 non-refundable deposit. Because it was all the way up in the northeast of England, I just wanted to make sure that it was, as he said, a usable classic.
Yeah.
In other words, roadworthy. What?
I think I burst the blood vessel. I'm sorry. Right.
What? What's so funny about that?
I've wet myself.
Look. Are you
Right,
laughing?
okay.
Are you laughing because it's an Austin Allegro?
No, I'm just laughing. Yeah, right, go on.
Okay, so I rang him up and I asked if there were any issues with the car that he knew about, or what the issues were, and he said none that he knew of, but he wasn't really sure, which I thought was a bit strange because he ran a classic car restoration business. So he said he'd take it for a spin, and he got back to me 3 hours later and said that he'd taken it for a drive, and it was pretty good. He'd had it up to 70 miles an hour. He couldn't see anything awry with it, apart from some knocking. But
Do you know, when you told me the story, it reminds me of something like out of Basil 40. So you got the car, you took it, you driven it down the road.
This is a moment I've waited for years
God
and
knows
years.
how many years, yeah.
Because I've wanted an Allegro since before I took my first driving test, and that was when I was 17.
And you're now
44. So I drive down the road, and as I approach the junction, which in itself is slightly disturbing because when I hit the brakes, it sort of reluctantly comes to a halt. I look in the driver's side mirror to check what's coming behind me. And as I look in the mirror doesn't reflect the image of what's behind me because there is no mirror attached to the body of the car.
Where was it?
Well, I found the mirror later on, but there was no mirror. There's no mirror on the other side either. It wasn't made with a mirror on the passenger side, but...
Oh, really?
Yeah, those...
Gosh.
I think the top spec ones were, but...
Why didn't you turn back and go, hey, mate, where's the bloody mirror?
I was too embarrassed. It's at that moment that I realised that they must be laughing at me. And it wasn't really his problem anymore.
Oh, God, yeah. They would have thought, God, I wonder if he realises there's no mirror. Oh, well. Now you just made yourself look like a right wussy boo.
So I turned right out of the junction, drove half a mile down the road.
And you've got no mirror and no brakes. It's just so funny. Go on. It's your dream car. You're bound to break the law a bit.
It's kind of like being on a runaway lawnmower.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm crossing this roundabout, I'm thinking, I'm doing this. I've got control of the car. And I went into this Jet petrol station. Remember Jet?
Yes.
Okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm 300 miles from home. The car doesn't feel like it's going to make it 300 miles. It feels quite iffy. And he's told me that I need some lead replacements. So I make it into the garage, put £30 in the tank, and then this old man wanders over. So I have a chat with him about when he was a Leyland dealer. And then I go into the garage and get the LRP. When I come back, I try starting the car, and no matter how I try, I can't get it to start.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, I've got to ring the RAC. But then I remember this old guy, and he comes over and gets the car started.
God, that was a stroke of luck. So you get in the car and you're off again.
Yeah, it's fine. It's nothing to do with the car. It's not the car's fault.
Still got no brakes, still got no mirrors.
So getting onto the M1 with no mirror, it was quite hair-raising.
Not really, you just got to look to your right, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you don't have mirrors on a bicycle. So I drove down the motorway. That's a long drive before you get onto the M62. I don't know, maybe 100 miles. And the car was fine. I was cruising 50 most of the time, but sometimes creeping up to 70, 75. One thing I noticed as I was driving was that there was a hole in the floor of the car. And I've since discovered there's quite a few. I went on a bit of a tangent, but finally I get onto the M62 and I stop at some services. Every time an old man walks past, he just stops and starts talking to me. Usually about how he used to have an Allegro. So I get some gaffer tape and some scissors and kind of fix the mirror.
You're lucky the mirror didn't fall off halfway down the motorway. That would have been hilarious.
And then the good thing is this time the car starts.
Right.
But I can't get the handbrake off. I got like both hands and I'm pressing it so hard.
You pulled it up too far.
So yeah, I thought maybe I pulled it up too far.
Yeah, you did.
And I don't want to break the handbrake, you know? I think I'm going to have to phone the RAC this time. But I see an old man walking past and I think old men know this car really well. So I go up to this guy and I say, excuse me, you ain't good at getting handbrakes off. And he said, I'm all right. I said, can you get the handbrake off this? And he just goes in the car and does it straight away. And I said, what did you do? And he said, you just lift the handbrake. So that's another thing I didn't know about Allegros. So the sat nav, it kind of sends me on some sort of tangent around some old town somewhere. I don't know where it was, Dewsbury or something.
Yeah.
But I'm going through this urban area and I've got there's a long tailback behind me. And I'm doing about 28 miles an hour through urban roads. I won't go any faster because if somebody steps out in front of a car,
you can't stop.
I can't stop very quickly. So I've got to just go at a very sedate pace. You're not supposed to be going more than 30, 40 on those roads anyway. Yeah. And it's really then that you realise why roads have slow written on them. But getting back on the motorway, I start doing this calculation in my head because I've put 30 quid petrol in the tank and the fuel gauge doesn't work. And I realise that I have no idea how much petrol there is left in the tank. And that because those old cars, they do, you know, maybe 30 miles a gallon, that I might actually run out of petrol at any moment. I come off at the next turning and I cannot get the fuel cap off. I'm doing every which way I can and it just will not budge. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is so embarrassing. Can I call the RAC about this? But I do eventually get the key to work. After that, it was basically pretty smooth. When I got to Newtown, I was very fortunate because the 27-mile journey between Newtown and Llandrindod Wells is very twisty and turny, but it's also one in which cars expect you to drive at 60 miles an hour, which I find quite insane.
Yeah.
You know, you get tailgated if you're not.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Going really quick along that route. Yeah. So there was not a single car behind me on that whole way.
Yeah, you are lucky. And maybe they were all sat behind you looking, going, what is that?
When I got into the car park, after that epic 298-mile
God, I
journey,
knew you were home because I heard this crash.
I swung into the car park and I temporarily forgot that the brakes are not too clever. So I pressed the brake and the car just carried on going and it actually curbed.
Yeah, it did. You couldn't get it off the curb.
Well, once I got the car going again.
Yeah. And then you couldn't get it in reverse.
Yeah, but it was fine. So I started the car off and took it to the garage, and it actually kind of broke down outside the garage.
Yeah, you want the choke on for about 20 minutes, and if it's cold, if it's a cold morning, you want it on for a bit longer.
So that's the story of how I got my Allegro.
I think it's quite funny that you went through that ordeal getting that. I found it really funny anyway, especially starting with the mirror. That's hilarious. I could just imagine you looking in the mirror and it not being there.
Yeah, that was a really disappointing thing because...
So there's quite a lot went wrong with that if you think about it. You get the handbrake.
Well, no. The mirror, but none of it's the fault of the car. The car, actually, it turned out, according to the mechanic, is
pretty sound.
Very sound. Engine, gearbox, body, all good. You know, and it's, as far as I can see, it's an unrestored Allegro. So